So what we're going to do once again is we're going to do the socrative. It's kind of a review of 2 class periods to see if you've got that information. Just 10 questions though, it doesn't count as a grade, so don't sweat it. I will even make it available for you so that you can do this online again if you'd like. Then we're going to do Google Earth with Jane Goodall. We're going to get into Notability and work on homework. It's called Identifying Variables in an Experiment. So that's what we got on tap for today. Can you get your iPads ready? I'm going to turn on the socrative and I'm going to pace it here in class so that we're all on the same question at the same time. So you can do the website socrative or you can use the app. So I don't recall if you have the app installed. It's a student login, and I don't know if you can see the number at the top, but the classroom that we have for socrative, it is 458851. So I'll put it on the board. And that marker's dead. 458851. You can go to socrative.com and then do student login with that code 458851. So I've got 8 students in. 10, 2 have answered this question. It's teacher-led, so I will wait for you to answer the question, and then we'll move on to the 10 questions in order. Yeah? Student login? I'll make it available so you can get it. Yeah. Everyone in? There's 23 of us, and I've got 18 in so far. $19 in. Anyone need help logging in? 20? 3 more? So answer the question, and then it is going to have you wait. All right, just about there. 19 out of 22, and 1 more logging in. Did you get logged in? Yeah, just put your first name. All right, we're all logged in. 2 people are answering the question, though. So I've got 21 out of 23 answered. You might remember it's at the top of the syllabus. Yeah, we went over that. 10 days ago or so. Just a reminder that the acknowledgement form for the syllabus was due last Sunday. I have graded all of those that have been turned in. So if you turned it in a couple days ago, I may not have gotten to it yet. So don't let those 5 points go, though. If you're 1 day late, it's 10% off. If you're 2 days late, it's 20% off. That's what the policy is. But I will not take off late penalties for this first assignment here. All right. How'd we do? Yes, it is to learn a lot of stuff in biology and concepts, letter A. It is to pass the final exam. It is to get an A in all your classes, but the number one goal is B. Have fun. Be fascinated by some stuff. Keep it interesting. Keep it relevant. Second question. Should be on your screen now for you to answer. We'll try to pick up the pace just a little bit. Here we go. Labs and projects are worth a lot, 35%. Third question. What's the overall grade percentage for quizzes in this class? Remember, there are no tests in this class, just short quizzes. You get to drop the lowest of your quiz scores. There'll be extra credit offered at the end of the semester, well, toward the middle anyway. That goes into your test grade or quiz grade too. And the answer is, waiting for one more person, there we go. 35%. Quizzes, 35%. Labs, 35%. How about homework and classwork? How much is that of your grade? Is it 15%? Is it 5%? 30%? Here it says 15%. Is that true? Two people are still trying to figure it out. One more? Good. That's correct. 15%. It doesn't sound like much, but you know what? That's the difference really between an A and a B. And if you would ace all your labs and ace all your tests, then you'll get an 85%. But if you pass on your homework and the classwork, it's hard to get a B in this class. So that's when students get a C. So just stay on top of your homework. There's not all that much. So what we have, even though it's 15%, it matters. What is the late penalty? Per calendar day, not per school day. Canvas will automatically keep track of this. Waiting on one student. Going once. Great. 10% it is. In the last class, you looked up the definition of science, trying to keep it simple and in your own words. All right. We do run experiments in science with the scientific method, but science is an approach, that means scientific method, of understanding the natural world with our 5 senses. What is the first step of the scientific method? All right. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 student left. Kind of all over the board there. First thing is you have to see it, you have to hear it, you have to smell it, you have to taste it, you have to feel it with your touch. Our 5 senses. Maybe using technology to expand our senses. But isn't that first? You've got to get some input. So there, we just observed something. There we go. Is he having a good day or what? And then next question. What is biology? And 100%, almost. Study of life. Study of Earth is geography or geology. Science using the scientific method. All sciences use the scientific method. Sure, the scientific method really ends with the conclusion when you look it up, but the better end is publish. But when we watch that play pause it with Curiosity and the geckos, they took it a step farther, right? Use your imagination, come up with invention, be innovative, make something from the results of your experiment. Do something with the results. Isn't that the goal? The goal of an invention is to make life easier, to help us in some way. That's what innovation means. And the last question, number 10. Okay, here are the results. Did you... They just called it molecular forces, and what that means is that some molecules have positive side, because there's more protons there. Some molecules have more of a negative side, where more electrons are. And opposites attract, right? So the positive side of one molecule sticks to the negative other surface or a negative molecule, kind of like this magnet right here. Magnet's on the end of his feet and he sticks to the board. So that's like a molecular force. And so that was just a quick review to see how you were paying attention. And now what we're going to do is Google Earth. Do you have this app installed on your iPad? I don't think so. Let's see if the app installs quickly. Do you guys know where Zulu is on your iPad? Zulu is an app installed on your iPad that is used to download apps. It's used to check what apps you have installed, if your apps are up to date, things like that. So how can you find it if you have a really busy iPad desktop, so to speak? Swipe down, right? Get you into a search window. Just swipe on the screen, search for Zulu, and you'll see the icon.
It's not there.
Not there?
It's called student.
It's called Student. So it's still Zulu, but it's called Student. There's a student Zulu and a teacher Zulu. Then search for the word Google Earth. The app works much better. I also have been able to log into a web version of it, but it's slower and it's experimental, so it works, but not as good as the app. So if you could take a moment to download the Google Earth app, I mean, and let's see how long it might take. Oh, so you guys got it pretty quick. See, it's going to take a minute for my web browser to load Google Earth. But I'm on my MacBook. So take a moment to explore it while we are waiting for everyone to get your Google Earth. If you want to do a search, type in your address, type in the Grand Canyon, type in something into the search window, and as soon as you hit enter, it will fly you right there. You can search for modern day high school, Santa Ana, and we can take a look at our classroom door. We can zoom right into it. Hopefully that my screen's going to pop up. Have you ever seen those cars drive by, the Google cars, filming everything? Sometimes you'll see them in the neighborhood. It's a car with about 10 cameras on it. And they can drive by at like 20 miles an hour and get all of the views. So they do that and they drive down all of these streets. Last year I had a student that said, yeah, I saw it drive by and I knew where it was. So I zoomed in. And they're really good at getting cars out of all the streets. They get rid of people, they get rid of cars, but they forgot to get rid of him. So he's actually in one of the views. He thought that was pretty cool. All right, my screen came on. So I'm going to hit, I think it's still loading or something, even though I've got a picture, it's kind of frozen. There, just real slow. Hit the search window and type Jane Goodall. And there's a guided tour that I want to have you do. It's called Gombe and Google. There are 3 of them. Choose the correct one. Gombe in Google. So type Jane Goodall. Gombe in Google. And this opening bit is really cool.
I looked into his large and lustrous eyes. They seemed somehow to express his entire personality, his serene self-assurance. What an amazing privilege it was. I lay there, part of the forest, and I found myself thinking, this is where I belong. Together, the chimpanzees and the baboons and the monkeys formed one whole.
That was her voice. So there's a guided tour of where she was studying the chimpanzees in Tanzania in Africa, and also showing her original hometown over in Europe. So when she was a young woman, she had always wanted to study animals in the field. So when she went to Africa, she met up with a professor who liked the idea that she hadn't been to college yet, because college can sometimes help form opinions. So being that she had not gone to college yet, she would be unbiased, and she could look at things maybe in a way that others who were already at the university and had ideas of what to do. So he liked the idea of working with someone green in the field, so to speak. And so she had a lot of enthusiasm, as you kind of got from yesterday's homework from the Play Pause It. But this is what I would like for you to do. There are 11 slides, so you hit Let's Begin if you haven't already done so. And my experimental version is not very responsive. You can see that there are 11 slides. All right, now it's going. It's showing all the red dots that when you hit the next buttons down here, there's 11 different screens. Sometimes there's a picture, sometimes there's a video for you to play right here. So sometimes there's a 360-degree picture that you can spin around here in Google Earth. So take the time to go through the 11 slides and read the short paragraphs that you see right there. So do a little exploration of maybe about who's still loading. So I'll do the still loading. And you can listen with headphones if you'd like. There isn't a lot of video, but feel free. She was instrumental in getting a lot of conservation of the chimpanzees' territory, because just like here in America, we tend to cut down forests to make farmland. There's legitimate reasons for that, right? To make a living, to have food for yourself and to bring to market. But if we're not careful, we could destroy their entire habitat. So she now has an institute over there in Africa to help them with their conservation efforts because of the studies that she did with chimpanzees. Now we're talking about this because we're dealing with the nature of scientific investigations with science experiments, so she was really good at that. Two types of data, right? Counting, qualitative, and taking notes. Qualitative data. You're just writing down your observations, seeing interactions. So she's talking about this in the video. here at Google Earth as well. The second slide takes you over to England. When you have a responsive internet, you can really zoom down close to the ground. These are satellite images. Did you know the capability of satellites? They can get so close that they can read license plates on cars. They can even zoom down on like a quarter on the ground from space. So they don't allow us to have that level of detail on Google Earth for national security reasons. They don't want to have too much detail. So as I zoomed into here, it got a little bit fuzzy and stuff. And sometimes it doesn't let you get too close to the ground. In other areas, I could get at tree level, just right over the trees, and then look kind of underneath the leaves. So in some areas of less national security, I think they even give a little more detail. But this is our hometown. You can spin it around. Google Earth is pretty awesome. And they have some guided tours in Google Earth. So here we are in England. You can zoom out. She said she had the opportunity to go to Kenya, where she met her future mentor at the university called Louis Leakey. Could you imagine yourself not much older than you are right now? Maybe 5 years older, and then armed with only binoculars and a notebook. She went to the jungle. This is her high vantage point. It's now named Jane's Peak. She would look for chimpanzees. The chimps were very fearful of her at first, kept their distance, but after a while, they got used to her. So much so that she could be right in their presence and observe them all day long. She was the first to record the qualitative data of chimpanzees using tools to get at food. They would take a stick and stick it into the hole of a tree where termites were eating parts of the tree. The termites would go on the stick, they would pull it out, and they would have a termite popsicle. That's a tool. So up to that point, it was thought that only man and prehistoric humans would use tools. So it was a big surprise. Got it on video right up here. Anyone still waiting on Google Earth to download? Still waiting? So these pictures are 360 views that you can spin around with your fingers on the screen. Here on my computer, it's a little more cumbersome. I can't do the twist and move the screen. It's just not very responsive like the iPad.
It was in Bombay some 40 years ago that Jane Goodall witnessed something that no one had ever seen before.
Not sure if the video would continue to play.
The first 6 months money I had, which was all I had, was running around, and I knew if I didn't see something exciting before that money ran out, that would be the end. And then I saw this black shape hunched over a terminate man appear through my binoculars. I saw a hand. Picking the termites off with his lips. And that is what was supposed to make us most unique at that time. Humans are only humans using their tools, either defined as man the tool maker, and the same one have to be defined man, be defined tool, etc.
She gave all the chimpanzees names and she could identify them, and so she kept detailed notes on what the family members were doing. She noticed aggression, she noticed all the other emotions, care and nurturing. So she was able to track generations of these chimpanzees. On slide 6, the video is no longer a valid link. So starting on slide 7, they start to talk about the threats to the environment of the chimpanzees. Habitat loss. The fire that you see in the background right now on this slide 7, it's a fire probably to clear the environment of trees, cut them down and then burn them. So to make grazing cattle fields and farmland. But the chimpanzees need the jungle trees in order to hide and to make their homes. So all across the planet, humans are really good at growing and multiplying, right? Our population worldwide, it just keeps growing. Exponential growth. And we need more space. So we take other animals' space. So with her conservation efforts, the last few slides are talking about the successes of setting aside jungle for the chimpanzees. Natural reserves. So they've done a good job of that over in many continents. Even here in Southern California, we have set aside parts of the shoreline for no fishing so that you can have schools of fish stay here. If we keep destroying their habitat with different fishing techniques, dragging chains across the floor, casting huge nets to capture everything that swims in the area, we have a way of kind of devastating habitats. So a lot of Orange County shorelines now are no fishing for a good reason. so that we keep a nice habitat. Here in Southern California, there were only a few landowners. Can you believe that? They had huge ranches. The Irvine family, one down south where Rancho Mission Viejo is. So they just were just a few landowners, and they kept selling off for development. But as they got smaller and smaller, they start to set aside land for future preservation. Right about the time you guys were born, there was a big battle in Huntington Beach for Bolsa Chica wetlands. The owner of the wetlands wanted to fill it in and build hotels, golf courses, houses. So it was in a legal battle for 10 to 20 years. And the developer finally got to develop the backside of the estuary, but they had to restore the front side, get more ocean water flowing into the estuary. So Bolsa Chica wetlands now is a nice preserve, set aside so that it's not developed. Just like a rest stop for migrating birds, going from like the equator up to Canada and then back again. When we take long road trips, we need rest areas too. Places to fill up your car with gas and to fill up your stomach with food. So migrating animals need that too. That's what estuaries are. But on the West Coast and in America, we filled in 90% of estuaries because it's prime oceanfront property. So over in Africa, they've done a really good job now of trying to maintain their habitat, and they have different toggles that you can hit that show the various areas that they've set aside. Gombe National Park, no hunting allowed, no destruction of their habitat. Conservation goals are even farther than that. So it's good to know that other countries are aware of their natural resources of plants and animals. You may have heard of the word poaching. Poaching is illegal hunting in a natural game preserve. So you would want all the wild animals of giraffes and lions and tigers over in the savannah to be protected. And yeah, that area is. But illegal hunters go in there under the cover of darkness with special rifles, and they shoot these animals anyway because there's a black market for the furs of like leopards, ivory, and the tusks of the great animals there. And then they just cut off the horn and leave the animal dead right there in the field. So there's such a vast area, and they don't have the police force to get all these illegal hunters. So it's always a battle. Even though it's set aside, there are people that try to take advantage of, hey, they're all right there, easy pickings. So just another minute or two, and then we're going to move on to the next activity. There's been a lot of forests that have been cut down, but now they are trying to build the forest back up again. That's called restoration, reforestation. And they have a satellite image from 2005 where it was worse, and 2014 is much better. So that's what these toggle switches are. You can see the satellite image becomes much greener in 2014. That's a great success story. Slide number 12, it shows the expanded range of the chimpanzees. Almost from coast to coast in Africa. Not the entire continent, so it's near the equatorial jungles. So it's kind of cool to take a time out and just kind of explore and not worry about points like a homework assignment. And Google Earth is a pretty amazing tool. All right, wrap up what you're doing there with Google Earth, and now make your way over to Notability. Have Notability ready, but let's do number 5 first so that you can bring your file that we're going to work on over to Notability. We'll save ourselves a step. So over here in the to-do list or under the module, you want to go grab this file. It is called Identifying Variables in an Experiment. Click into that. It brings you to this assignment right here. There's a video that we're going to watch together. It's just a few minutes long. There's a picture about the variables that we will touch upon. But right now, let's get this file at the very bottom. Here's the homework file. When you click into Files, it usually opens it up in a preview on the screen. It might act differently on your iPad than on my computer. There's a download button or an export button. You see in the top right hand corner of my screen, this is the export, and you can export stuff to different apps. This is my preview window. I don't have an export button from here. So on my web browser, it put it in the download, and oh, there it was, share. So on my computer, I have to share in a different way, but are you able to hit share or send and send it over to Notability? Yeah, pretty easy on your iPad. When you send files over to Notability, you will have an option. Do you want to add it to an existing note that you already have open, or do you want to create a new note? Sometimes you want to add it to an existing file. The example would be if we have our lab write-up file and we're also working our data in the Numbers app for data tables and charts, we can send the data tables and charts over to Notability and add it to our lab write-up. So I'll show you how to do that later. So sometimes you do want to add it to an existing file. In this case, you can create a new note, and then it tells you the subject. Maybe you don't even have a subject set up, and you can't create a subject on the fly, I don't think. You have to do it beforehand. You can also rename your files as they're coming over if you want to do that. Yeah.
I can make this.
Okay. Another question over here too? Yeah, you can. So here I am in Notability, and I'm going to click File and then open up your file. Oops. I moved it into a folder, so. And so I had a lot of steps to open up my file in Notability, but when you get the hang of it on a computer or in your iPad, it's quick. You'll use this tool a lot, and I bet most of you guys have already used it, right? Raise your hand if in your other classes you've used Notability. Yep. Do you have subjects set up on the left-hand side? Organize your classes. You're going to have a lot of files. And think of it this way, you're going to have a lot of files this year, you're going to have more files next year, and in all 4 years. So you'll use Notability almost every day. So, I mean, I've got 300 files in biology, 222 in forensics, and class years and stuff. So what to create, there's a plus button, and create a folder for biology if you don't already have one. Then you should create one for every class. So hit the plus, and you want to add a subject. A divider is sometimes nice. It'll just draw a line. To divide or separate things. You can reorder these by touching and dragging them, putting them in any order that you want. So you can kind of organize it. Do you guys know how to do a split screen? You swipe up from the very bottom edge of the screen, and it gives you the option to open up two things at once. So I don't have my iPad turned on right now. Swipe up on the screen, and then you have your taskbar at the bottom. I recommend that you put your commonly used apps down in the bottom menu bar, because that's easy to split screen. So I've got my web browser down there. I've got my email down there. I also have Notability. So apps that you want to split screen really need to be down in that menu bar. At least one of the screens. So go ahead and do a split screen of Notability and a web browser. Just so I can see that you can do this, why don't you put the assignment on one side and Notability on the other. Here on my screen, I have to minimize windows. And so I have to have my web browser and Notability open at the same time.
Don't forget to like and subscribe and follow me on Twitter at SciencePet.
My computer's acting really slow. I'm doing a lot of things at one time right now, so it's like I need to have a restart. Clear the memory. So I'm having you demonstrate a split screen between Notability and a website, like our assignment. But things are not acting well for me here up on the computer. Everything is slow. How's it coming with your split screen? I'm going to walk around and check your screens to see if you can do a split screen. So it's side by side. If you have a floating screen, grab the top bar and slide it over to the right, and then it will kind of click into place. And then you can maximize one. You see that little gray divider in the middle, the vertical one? You can click on that, drag it left and right. Sometimes you want to have 3/4 and 1/4 instead of 50-50. If it's floating, then you just grab it. Here's a few minutes on the different variables.
Ordinary people doing ordinary things. That includes you, me, and other scientists in the world. The scientific method is just a process or steps taken to produce reliable results to answer a specific question. Maybe you think you don't use a scientific method in your life, but I can guarantee that you do. For example, imagine you wake up on a Saturday and you couldn't find your cell phone. That's an observation. Then you do a little research by thinking about the last time you had it. You suspect that it might be in the pocket of your pants from yesterday. That's a hypothesis. And when you check your pants, you're doing an experiment. But science and life don't always go as planned, and you find no cell phone in your pants pocket. So the second observation leads you to think again and recall what else you did yesterday. You remember that you put your cell phone in your backpack during school. So you decide it must be there, and you go and check. And lo, there it is. Life can continue, and you're so happy that you share the result with your best friend and explain why it took you so long to text them back. Science. These are the steps of the scientific method. And in any step, you can go back and repeat the process. Typically, after you conduct an experiment and conclude that your results aren't answering the question, you go back and try something else. And really, truly, observations and research are going on the entire time. Science is a continually ongoing process. Now let's break down each of these steps into their component parts. All that can be observed with the 5 senses are included in observations. You use your sense of smell, sight, taste, touch, and hearing to make your observations in science. Research is an important step in science because it may answer other questions you have and help refine your experiment before you go down a path that leads to nowhere or conduct an experiment that's already been done. Make sure you use reliable sources to learn background information. Scientific journals and online sources that are vetted and trusted are best. Avoid information from blogs and out-of-date textbooks, as the information might not be reliable. Once you have your research completed, you can form your hypothesis, which is a prediction of what you believe will occur. It is often seen as an if-then statement and is very specific. Here's an example. If gummy bears are placed in water for 24 hours, then they will swell to over twice their original size. It has an if and a then, and uses specific terms that make this experiment repeatable. The experiment itself is made of several parts. Most experiments collect two types of data, qualitative and quantitative. Qualitative data relies on descriptions like soft, yellow, shiny, and wet. Quantitative data relies on numbers like 25 centimeters or 2.3 grams. Once you know what types of data you're going to collect, you can define the variables in your experiment. There is the independent variable, which is the thing you change, to see how it affects your dependent variable, which is the thing you measure. So in the gummy bear example, the change in the experiment is that the gummy bears are being placed in water. The dependent variable is the volume of the gummy bear, which is measured before and after it is soaked in water. A valid experiment will have both an experimental group, where the independent variable is altered, and a control group, which can be used to compare the experimental group to the normal or unaltered version. In the gummy bear experiment, the bears placed in water are the experimental group, and the dry gummy bears are the control, because that's how gummy bears normally are. So to summarize, an experiment should have an experimental group and a control group. The experimental group will have an independent variable and a dependent variable. And the data that is measured and collected can be qualitative, quantitative, or both. Thanks for watching this episode of Teacher Spec. Don't forget to like and subscribe.
So with just 1 minute left, just a reminder that this is your homework to complete that variable sheet that we are looking at. And you need to know the variables, independent and dependent. So, no, it's going to be tomorrow night before our next class. Take a look at this graphic right here. An independent variable is the one that you change in the experiment. The dependent variable is the one that you are measuring. So in all these Bart Simpsons, you are looking for which is the one he's manipulating, which is the one he's measuring. All right, so identify the variables in those word problems. That's your homework. See you tomorrow night.